Well, Dennis, thanks very much indeed. And it's incredible to be here. I'm just so proud of what you've done and how you've pulled all this together over the three days. Thanks for the build up. Let's see if we can live up to it. I've got a lot of stuff to get through, actually. And so if you've got a pen and paper, you might want to sketch, you might want to be able to write down some of the thoughts we're going to go through. I've got a lot of stuff, a lot of material I'm going to try to cram into 30, 35 minutes. Then we'll try and do some Q&A at the end. So hang on to your hats because, like I say, there's a ton of stuff I need to get to. So we're in lockdown, right? And no one has ever been here before. I just want to share some thoughts with you. This is a big deal. We are living right now through a real-time tragedy. The loss of life is incredible. Like nothing we didn't expect any of this to happen, right? This is something that's come kind of completely out of the blue. It's a staggering loss of life, and our hearts go out to everybody who's been touched by the tragedy. My guess is that in a group this size, an audience this size, some of you will have been touched by this illness, and our hearts are with you. The fact is, though, that most of Britain, this lockdown now has been going on for what I want to say 7-8 weeks even, and we're tired of it, right? Everybody kind of wants to get out of this. I mean, there's no real clarity, and we just want to go back to the old times and what it looked like. And when we kind of think about it, I guess for a lot of people, it looks like this, right? This is what it was. We could just have a lot of fun, and we were in contact with other people. There was no big deal about going within 6 feet of people. It wasn't like that. This has come on us absolutely nowhere. And we long for the good old days. We long for a time when we could just go out for dinner with a friend, maybe with your husband, with your wife, just friends. Just go out into a crowded restaurant and just be able to feel the buzz and people around you. And wouldn't that be amazing if we could do it? Just shake hands with people, just say hi. My name's Dawid. My name's Rachel. Hi, nice to meet you. I can't remember the last time that I shook hands with someone. It's just all gone, and it's gone in the blink of an eye. And you remember it was just 2019 that we were all kind of saying, well, it's the end of that decade, and it was tough. For some of us, we had a tough 2019. Some of you will know that 2019 was hard, and we were looking forward to 2020 because, as one of my Ghanaian friends said to me, 2020 is the year of plenty. It's been a tough decade, but now it's going to be different. And it is different, but not in the way that any of us thought. Just in the blink of an eye, it's all changed. Now we need to stay away from each other. Now we've got like 6 foot. We all know what 2 meters is now in a way that we didn't know before. And when we just look at all of our infrastructure and how it's just ground to a halt. The London Underground, there's no one there in our airport. There's nothing. And the roads that used to be so busy, just silent, quiet. Even as everything shuts, and I know it's coming back to life a little bit, here's the thing. Now is an amazing time to be able just to sit and reflect and just contemplate, and just think about what's happening right now. It's incredible. I mean, the world is breathing suddenly. This wasn't on the menu. We didn't think this was going to happen. We've been talking about 2050, and now suddenly in 2020, just look at that map. In January and then through to February, look how it's just cleaner, and the sky actually is bluer. And what can I do to help keep it that way? I mean, if you miss this opportunity, it may not come again. This is the big pause. This is when you can just stop and you can reflect and you can think, not just about yourself and about your career, but about what you can do, what impact you can have on the world. And it's also a time when you can think about who matters to you. Family. I've been really thinking about family, these last 7-8 weeks. My family's all home. We're all in the same place together. Just the ability to think about who matters, about each of those different relationships. And if you're living with family, yeah, it's tough in lockdown. But think about it. These are your family that you're with. Think about how much they mean to you. Think about your friends. Think about how much they mean to you. Really about how much you love them, actually. And when was the last time you told them that? When was the last time you told your family or your friends how much they mean to you? Or maybe it's not family, maybe it's not friends, maybe it's a stranger, but she's not really a stranger. Actually, she's an angel because she sat and she held your mother's hand through the night, your grandmother's hand. She was right there. Even though she might herself get sick, she still came to work, and she still did it. And she's paid hardly anything to do it. You know, it's a funny thing, because up until now, we had a completely different set of values, right? Now, our heroes, if you think about it, were the sports stars. These are the people that we clapped for. These are the people we sat and watched on our TV and said, wow, look at how great they are. But you know what? Whether it was actors or whether it was the icons of our age, now we have different heroes, because with these guys, we never stood outside and clapped for them. Not really, never. I don't remember ever going outside on a Thursday night at 8 o'clock and clapping. Now we do, because we know what real heroes look like. And we clap until our hands hurt, because we love them for what they do and we admire them for their commitment for doing what they do, and they do it for very little. Our values are changing, and it's time to think about it, and it's time to reflect. And so while we're thinking and we're reflecting and we're in this really big pause, I just want to say this, you know, that it is phenomenal that so many of you have come to these last 3 days and have participated and have asked your questions and are thinking about, you know, where am I going? And how am I going to get there? What do I need to do? How can I make myself a better person? And so I want to give you some thoughts, and I'm going to run through these really quickly. I've got a lot of stuff to get through, so I'm just going to try to race through it. But I'm going to tell you 10 things. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you that you need to know when your cheese is moving, number one. Number two, you do not want to be a worm in horseradish. Number three, you need a big, hairy, audacious goal, or a BHAG, as they call it. Number four, when you need to act, act. Number five, take responsibility for yourself. This is super important. Number six, ask for help. Be vulnerable. Learn to say, I'm sorry, it was my mistake. Number seven, find your team, be part of that team and know your role in that team. Number eight, it's absolutely essential. You have to learn to talk. You have to learn to hold a room in the palm of your hand and keep it there spellbound. You've got to be able to do that. Number nine, you need to know what your values are. And number 10, you need to be kind. So let's just get into this now very quickly. You need to know when your cheese is moving. And I highly recommend that you read this book. If you haven't read it, Who Moved My Cheese? Absolutely brilliant. It talks about change in your life, sudden change that just comes upon you, or sometimes it comes upon you gradually. And it's about these two mice and these two humans. And they wake up every single day. Without fail, they get up and they come out of their little houses and they walk up to this huge pile of cheese. It's cheddar cheese, it's beautiful, succulent cheese. And they just eat this cheese all day. And then in the evening, when they've eaten enough cheese and they can hardly move, they go back and then they kind of watch a little bit of Netflix and then they go to sleep. And the next day they repeat. And they just keep doing it. And one day, one of the mice says to the other mouse, you know, I think that pile of cheese is getting smaller. The other mouse says, I don't think so. It looks the same to me. The first mouse says, yeah, I think it is. In fact, a couple of days later, he says, you know, I'm going to take off. I'm going to find new cheese. Other mouse says, I'm going to stick around because it doesn't look that bad to me. First mouse takes off and he goes, you know, he has a horrendous journey. It's cold, it's wet, it's miserable, it's windy. He's walking through forests over mountains. But eventually, guess what? He arrives around the corner. There it is, cheese. There's red Leicester, there's Gorgonzola, there's Stilton. I mean, there's all kinds of cheese. He didn't even know there was this kind of amount of cheese. He only knew about cheddar. And there's all this beautiful cheese. Piles of it, mountains of it. So he sends a note to the other mouse and he says, hey, you need to get over here because there's some incredible cheese. The other mouse looks at the pile of cheese back at home and he's like, yeah, you know, he was right. It is getting smaller. So he takes off as well. Anyway, there are two humans left. One of the little humans, he eventually gets it and he eventually takes off and he finds new cheese, but you know, there's not so much left by the time he gets there. And the last little human, he never gets it. He literally never gets it. And so one day he walks out of his house and all the cheese is gone. It's just gone. And so he just shouts at the top of his voice, and it's what the book is called. And he just says, who moved my cheese? Like, where's my cheese gone? And if you haven't figured it out, cheese, it's a picture. This is like a parable, right? Cheese is what you love. Cheese is stuff that you thought was always going to be there. Cheese it's what makes your life great. So it's your job. It's the income that you always get. Every month it just arrives. It's your relationships. It's your marriage. It's just everything that you count on. It's your daily commute. All those things that make life happen. Point is, cheese moves. And some people spot it early and some people don't. And this for me is one of the biggest skills that I've had to learn in my career, I've got to say, is the ability to spot cheese moving. When I was working at Merrill Lynch as an investment banker, I was reasonably successful 2004, 2005. It was all before the global financial crisis. I had a great thing going there. I was, in charge. I was a managing director in charge of what they call the Strategic Solutions Group for the UK. But I could tell that this wasn't going to last. I could tell this construct wasn't going to last forever. I'm not going to pretend like I could see the global financial crisis, but I could tell that that the cheese was moving. So one day, I've been planning it for a while, but one day I just went into my boss, March the 6th, 2006, and I said, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. And thank you. It's been great, but I got to go. And he said, where are you going? And I said, well, I'm going to set up a new business. And I left. And I just basically, that's exactly what I did. I walked out and I started a brand new business. And I would recommend you read that book, Who Moved My Cheese? And you figure out from these mice exactly where you stand. How quickly are you able to spot the cheese moving? This is one of the biggest things. I find that people really struggle when the cheese moves. They don't figure it out. Here's one of the questions that little mouse, the first little mouse, when he went on his journey. Here's one of the questions, because he keeps coming across these signposts, and one of the signposts said this, and I want you to listen really carefully to this, my friends. If you've got a pen, write the answer to this down. What would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you do if you weren't afraid? In fact, if you want to get really real, write it in the chat. What would you do if you were not afraid? And back then in 2005, I was like, if I wasn't afraid, I would leave and I would set up my own business. I had a vision, I had a purpose. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but it was a huge thing to do. Can you imagine? I had some young kids, I had a mortgage. I was like, but that's what I would do if I wasn't afraid. And so when I figured out the cheese was moving, that's precisely what I did. And the mouse also sees this other sign which says, when you move beyond your fear, you feel free. And I've so found that over and over again in my career. Move beyond your fear. Take that step that you need to take, and you feel incredibly, incredibly free. And then he also had this saying, this was also up there, smell the cheese often so you know when it's getting old, which just means keep asking yourself, has the cheese moved? And I want to ask you this question today, right now. How has COVID-19, how has it moved your cheese? Because it has moved your cheese. It's moved my cheese, moved everybody's cheese. All those things that we thought we could do, we can't do anymore. How has your cheese moved? What are the implications for you? What are you going to do about it? These are really fundamental questions that you need to have an answer to. And if you think to yourself, look, nothing's changed, then you're probably in denial, because that's what happens very often when the cheese moves. I left Merrill Lynch and I had someone take a photograph outside for the last time, just so that I could remember what it was like. And then I left with another guy, Rob Gardner, and together we set up this new firm, Reddington. And yeah, it was a success. It still is, and now it has like 170 people working there. But the fact of the matter is, I couldn't have done it alone, and I did it with Rob, and it's been an incredible journey. I set up another firm as well called Mallow Street, and some of you might know about that. But all of that is because the cheese is moving. I can sense it moving. I know it's moving. And I take action when I see that. But here's the Kubler-Ross cycle. This is so important, because what happens usually when cheese moves is most people go into denial, shock and denial. Well, it can't be happening. There's a lockdown. It's never going to happen. How does that happen? Well, when you get told you're on furlough, the first thing is denial, and just say, why me? And then very quickly after that, it moves into anger, which is like, why do you choose me? Why don't you choose somebody else? Like, why me? And then there's some bargaining, which is, well, can we work this out? Is there a way that we can figure? Can we talk about this? And then after bargaining, when the situation hasn't changed, people then move into depression, which is like, there's no future. I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I just don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. And people go into a real depression, and sometimes they stay there, and it's a terrible thing. I talk to people in that situation, and it's a terrible thing to see. And then eventually, most people get to acceptance, where they find it. And acceptance is where you can start to deal with your situation, the fact that your cheese has moved. In all those other 4 stages, you can't think straight, because you're in denial, because you're angry, because you're bargaining, because you're in depression. You need to get to acceptance, and it's something that you can train yourself. You can train yourself to do. The next thing I want to say is, number 2, do not be a worm in horseradish. Don't be a worm in horseradish. Because to a worm in horseradish, the world is horseradish. This is a fabulous, Fabulous statement. You know, I don't have any tattoos, but if I ever get one, I think I might get this across my back, because I love this. So a worm in horseradish, the world is horseradish. What does that mean? Well, it's an old Yiddish proverb. And effectively what it means is if you live your entire life in your bubble, in your horseradish, then that's all you know. It's all you think about, it's all you talk about, and it constrains you. You never get to a place where you can think outside the box. Why? Because you're a worm in horseradish. You never get out of your comfort zone, and you never get to where the magic happens. Because guess what? Your comfort zone and where the magic happens, they're not the same place. Your comfort zone is your horseradish. Don't be a worm in horseradish. And you might say to yourself, well, how do I get out of my, how do I broaden my horizons? You know, it's never been easier to do that. There are over 3,000 TED Talks. You need to listen, choose good TED Talks to listen to. And if it's not TED Talks, then the other thing you need to do is subscribe to great newspapers. And it costs money. You know, I subscribe to the FT, it costs a lot of money. And I subscribe to the Economist, the New York Times. Well, subscribe to them. You don't have to commute anymore, at least at the moment. So, you know, they're expensive, but guess what? You know, you learn such a lot by reading, and by reading good material. And if you do that, and you listen to podcasts as well, and you listen to TED Talks, I tell you what, then you're in a position to start dealing with your situation. Because life needs to be lived like this. This is the way I see my life, is the way I like to live my life. It's not always possible, but it's how I like to live it. It's uncomfortable, it's exciting, and I have a very strong sense of purpose. You know, so many people live in maybe one of those. It's uncomfortable, but it's not particularly exciting, and they don't really have a sense of purpose. But let me tell you, when you get to a place where every day your life is a bit uncomfortable, but a bit exciting, and you have a strong sense of purpose, that's when things start to happen. This sense of purpose, this idea that I'm going somewhere, and I will not be deflected from it, it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. And we can talk a little bit later in the Q&A about what that actually looks like. But when I left Merrill Lynch to set up Reddington with Rob Gardner, I had this burning purpose, this burning sense that our industry could do things differently and could do them better, and that I could play a part in that with Robert Gardner. And so that's what we did. We left. We just walked out of the building. Effectively, you saw the picture, and we set up this. I set it up in my house, actually. I mean, at one level, it was completely crazy what we did, but it had to be done. When you have a sense of purpose, it has to be done. And then you can ask yourself the question, well, what if? What if I could do that thing? Whatever that big, hairy, audacious goal is, what if I could do that? What if I could really do that? Now, that thing you just wrote down on a piece of paper, what would you do if you weren't afraid? What if I could actually do that? And when you start asking that, that is when things start. That's when the game starts to change. That's when you can start thinking about big, hairy, audacious goals, which is number 3. Because you can look beyond the horizons and you can achieve things. It's not easy to get up on that where that guy is, but he did it, and he did it intentionally. And it wasn't easy to set up Reddington. It wasn't easy to set up Mallard Street. It wasn't easy to do any of the stuff that I've ever been able to do. None of it's been easy. I've failed a huge number of times. I've fallen over countless times. But the fact is, if you can ask yourself, what if, and you've got a sense of purpose, and you understand how the cheese is moving, and you're not a worm in horseradish, well, that is when life starts to get very interesting. And the fact of the matter is, you might look at it and you might say, well, it's impossible. I tell you this, it always seems impossible. Mandela said this, and it's so true. It always seems impossible until it's done. And there have been a few times in my life when I've had to deal with a situation that, frankly, it just seemed impossible. It seemed completely impossible. I had a situation in 2016, I'm not going to talk about it for too long, but I had a friend, I suddenly found out he had a heart attack and he was dying. He had like 24 hours to live, and the doctors had given up. And I had a friend here who was a heart surgeon, and we had to get out there, and my friend saved this other guy's life, and he did it in 24 hours. And I've got to say, it was impossible. At every step of the way, it was impossible, and it always seems impossible. It always seems impossible until it's done. But you need to have that mindset. You need to be thinking about getting things done that other people just say, well, that's crazy. You're never going to be able to do. You're never going to be able to do that. It doesn't matter who you talk to. Anyone you talk to who's really achieved stuff, they've usually pushed themselves to the absolute limit, to a place where other people have said, well, that's completely crazy. And when you have to act, this is the next point, you've got to act and you've got to move fast. And I just want to read you this quote. And by the way, maybe you don't learn, I don't know whether you learn poetry, learn stuff. Well, maybe you do. If you do, whether you do or not, you should learn this. It is a fabulous, fabulous quote. This is Brutus talking to Cassius. Play is Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. Cassius is trying to get Brutus to wait, and Brutus is saying, no, we have to act now. We've got to move now. And he says it this way, in a way that only Shakespeare can. There is a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at the flood, leads on to fortune. Omitted, all the voyage of their life is bound in shallows and in miseries. And then this is it. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves, or lose our ventures. Or lose our ventures, or it's all lost. You move, you act when you have to act, you get used to doing it, or you lose your ventures. The whole mission is lost. You know, when I left Merrill back in 2006, I had to move. Suddenly, I just, I realized this is the day, and I set it in the diary, and when I had to move, I had to move. And, when you work in investment banking or you're running a business, very often you'll have found this. I mean, you'll have found this in your own lives and in your own jobs. When you've got to move, you've got to move. And many people never really learn to do this. But if you want to be a great manager and you want to be good in your career, you've got to move. And a lot of the talks I've been listening in over the last couple of days have been around knowing what to do, being prepared to do what you need to do, and then getting on with it and doing it. And Tom Luba yesterday was making the point. You've just got to do what you've got to do. It doesn't matter what it is. Whether you're having a hard conversation, whether you're making a decision, you've got to basically take your decision when you've got to take it. You have to take responsibility for yourself. So many people never learn this. I struggle with this as well. And people who know me will tell you that. I had to learn to say, I'm sorry, it was my fault. I shouldn't have done that. I don't know why I did it that way. I shouldn't have done it. It was my fault. Yeah, sorry, it was me. And it's really hard. And some people never learn it. And some people make their way all the way up through the firm and they never figured out how to say, I'm sorry. But you have to take responsibility. And this, you can have the slides afterwards, but this is a simple setup where you can just say what happened in the box in the center. What did I do? Why did I do that thing? Why did I do that? How did I affect other people? And what am I going to do differently? When you go through that process with your actions, that's when you start to learn. That's when you're basically taking accountability and you're taking responsibility for yourself. Because this is the thing. You have to learn this. If it is to be, it's up to me, basically. It's up to me. I got to make it happen. No one's going to do it for me. You have to own the situation. And many people never really get to this place. They say they do, but they never really do. That leads on to the next part, which is that you have to learn to be vulnerable. You have to learn to say sorry, and you have to learn to ask for help. You have to learn to put your hands out. You basically say, can you help me? The church I go to on a Sunday, often when we're in worship, we put our hands out, and we're basically saying, this is me. I don't have anything to bring particularly. This is me. You have to learn to do that in the workplace. You have to learn to go to other people. You have to learn to say to them, can you help me, please? I mean, look at it. That's an attitude of basically saying, please help me. You're also saying, look, I will help you if I can. And most people, if you can learn to do this, the game completely changes. Are you following what I'm saying here? These are the different things you need. If you want a career, you want to know what the core traits are. It's not all about being big and alpha and learning to speak the codes and all the rest of it. Some of it is this stuff, is this soft stuff. It's taken 30 years. This is stuff I wish I'd learned when I was 1 year into the industry. Some of this stuff took me years to figure it out. Some of it I still haven't figured out. Still working on it. But this is the stuff. This is what is going to make you great in your career if you can do this. The next thing you need to be able to do, and I'm just going to very quickly mention this slide because that is when you get self-actualization. Self-actualization is at the top of the pyramid. Maslow's pyramid of needs. You finally get to the top. The desire to become the most that you can be, your full potential. That is self-actualization. And when does that happen? Well, it happens when all these things snap into place. It happens when you're able to handle your emotions, handle your anger, say you're sorry, ask for help, understand when things are moving. Well, maybe the greatest Formula One driver of all time, Lewis Hamilton. In my view, he is the greatest Formula One driver of all time, greatest driver of all time. An unbelievable talent, unbelievable. I don't know if any of you follow Formula One. Some of you are maybe not interested in the slightest. Some of you are, and if you are, you'll know that his talent is on a whole different level. And he does it through hard work, but he also does it through something else. You know what that is? It's the team. He doesn't do it by himself. And the fact of the matter is, if you really want to make it, you really want to cut it, you need to be part of a team. And some people struggle with that. They're not really team players. Really, they kind of feel that they know how to do it best themselves. They'll work with a team if they have to. The truth of the matter is, really, they're all about, let me show everybody else how to do it. I've been exactly like that. I'll take the view. I remember many years ago, I heard someone say about themselves, often wrong, never in doubt. And I thought, that's good. I like that. Often wrong, never in doubt. Because I'm often wrong, and I'm very rarely, my wife will tell you, I'm very rarely in doubt. I'm kind of learning, I'm working on it. But when you're in a team, you can't be like that. When you're a team, you have to understand exactly what your role is. If your job is to put the rear right-hand wheel on the car, you need to be better at doing that than anybody else. Now, don't worry about the left-hand side. It's your wheel. That's the one. You've got to be the best in the world at that. And that's how you win Formula One races. Do it in a team. This is a massive point, and I really feel a lot of people, if they got this point, all these things come together in a team. No one basically, in a team, no one owns it. It's the whole team's. And if you want to go fast, then go alone. Yeah, you're going to go fast. You're gone. If you want to go far, go together. And you know this proverb. I like the way, by the way, they say it's an African proverb. Why African, I don't know. But, why can't we work out what the country is that it came from? But anyways, it's a great proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I want to encourage you, make friendships, bond with people who you can go far with. When I left Merrill to set up Reddington, I knew who I wanted by my side. I knew that it had to be Rob Gardner, and he knew that he wanted to work with me. The two of us just stepped out. Complete trust, 100%. I trusted him implicitly, and he trusted me totally. Frankly, I would have trusted him with my life. Even though there was like an age difference between us, I was older than he was. But nonetheless, I was like, this guy, I can do stuff with this guy. Well, you need those kinds of relationships. You need those kind of relationships in life, your personal life, at work. You need to cultivate this relationship. You need to be part of a team, and then you're going to go far. That's when you're going to climb the mountain. That's when you're going to figure out where the cheese is going, and you're going to be able to make your move, because you're going to be able to talk to someone else, take advice, pick up the phone. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? What do you think I should do? Let me take your counsel. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers here. If you really want to make it, you've got to figure out how to talk. You've got to learn to communicate. And you have to learn to communicate powerfully with stories. Tom Ilube was saying this yesterday. It's a fantastic point. I heard his talk. I thought that's exactly right. You have to learn to communicate, and you have to do it through stories, through empowering people. There's no one better at this than your man Barack Obama. No one better. I mean, his ability to just tell you a story and just say, yes, we can. That's why he did two terms. That's why now we look at the current incumbent and we're like, what's this about? But you have to learn to do that. Obama wasn't always a great orator. He had to learn to do that. And you need to learn to do the same thing. And many people go through their whole lives and never really figure it out, never learn to do it. But you can learn to do it. Or you look at your man Stormzy. I mean, he's basically mixing it up and changing the landscape through his words, through his lyrics. Same with Trevor Noah, just rocked up from South Africa, went into the United States, and he's one of the most influential, listened to. Why? Because he knows how to talk. You need to learn to do the same thing. And one of the courses that Dennis mentioned is something that I like to run, called Spellbound, and this is me working with someone. I've worked with now hundreds and hundreds of young people. I like to do it with really people who are a bit disadvantaged. I've done it in prisons, but it's just a powerful way to learn to find your voice. And by the way, if there's anyone on here and you'd love to do that, we can find a way to do this online. I'll talk to Dennis. Maybe there's a way we can set it up. I've done some stuff with Dennis before on this, and maybe we can set something up and we can do this over a few weeks. We can just show you. We can learn it together. Now, how do I find my voice to tell my story, to get my idea across, to learn about the art, the science of speaking, of throwing down a challenge, of talking to people in such a way that they're captivated. How do I do that? You've got the invention part, you've got the arrangement part, you've got the delivery part, you've got the memory aspect, you've got the style aspect. There are all these different things. It's like playing a game of tennis, but you've got to learn it. There's something else you've got to learn to do, but you can. It's very possible. And if you thought to yourself, well, I'm not a public speaker, I don't do that. I don't do that. I do everything about it. I don't do that. You need to change that. And you need to commit. Maybe that's the thing you write down. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Maybe that's the thing. You write it down and you decide, 1 year from now, I'm going to give a talk to 50 people. I'm going to blow their minds with my ideas, with my passion, and with all that I've got to tell them. The next thing you need values, and I'm going to wrap after this. And if you forget everything else that I've talked about today, then please remember this. Remember this last point. You need to live by a set of values, both personally and professionally. If you want to create a brand beyond your career, so that people know who you are and what you stand for, then you need a set of values, and you need to be able to articulate them. And I love the All Blacks. I don't know whether you're a fan of rugby, but the All Blacks, many say, are the greatest sporting team in history. Like, it doesn't matter who you point to, the All Blacks. Okay, they didn't have such a great World Cup this time, but not every great team wins absolutely everything. But the All Blacks are, I mean, on any view, they are an insane machine. They're incredibly successful. And they have a set of values that I love. I love them. And if you don't know what they are, and if you don't know what your own set of values is, you need a set of values that you live by. And if you don't have a set of values, then I'd recommend these. They're a fabulous set. But this is what the All Blacks values are. Humility. They're the greatest team on the planet, don't forget. And yet, here's the thing. When they finish in there at the end of a match, when they're just completely blooded and bruised and can hardly walk off the field, every other team in the world has someone who comes in and cleans the whole place up, while they all kind of get onto the bus and go and take a cold bath. These guys, they clean the shed themselves. And the captain, he's the last guy out. He's the guy with the broom. He's the guy who sweeps it, and he walks out last of all. And they do that to show that actually they're not better than anyone else. They're not better than the person who cleans the room. Yeah, they may be the guy. They may be the best team in the world. But humility is something that they understand. And excellence, which just means there's no one better than us. When they walk out on the field, they're basically saying there's no one better than us. We're the best, we're the very best in the world, and we're going to show the entire stadium that we're the best by what we do and by our actions. And then respect for each other, for each other's views, for their opponents. No matter how savage the game, no matter how blooded and no matter how bruised, no matter how much they're hurting, they always respect the other side. Humility, excellence, respect. Let me ask you what your values are. If you can write them down, what are your values? Because when you learn these values, it means it's what you do. Humility. It means people can call you out. If you say these are my values and then you don't live by them, well, then people get to call you out and say, well, that's not one of your. I thought your value was humility. Why do you behave like that? I thought it was about excellence. Why are you handling that piece of work? Why are you going home at this time if you're trying to be excellent? Why do you deliver that? And respect. Why do you talk to her like that? Yeah, you may be her boss, but why do you talk to her like that? Where's the respect? Get the point. That's the beauty of having a set of values. If you remember nothing else, get a set of values. I want to finish with this, because this is a great value, and it really kind of sums the whole thing up. In a world where you can be anything, we've talked about it, haven't we? What a world we're in. Yeah, we're going through COVID-19 now, but it's going to pass. If you figure out where the cheese is moving, you figure out a way not to be a worm in horseradish, you get your big, hairy, audacious goal, you make it happen, and you have your sense of purpose. And if you have a faith, by the way, embrace it, explore it, get into it. I have a strong Christian faith, and without it, I don't know where I would be these last 12 months, or some of the stuff I've had to go through. I don't know where I would be without it. Explore your faith. Don't just let it be a thing at just on the side of desk for emergencies. You just kind of get it out when the fire alarm goes off. Let it be something that helps you to do all these things. Let it be something that helps you with your humility, with your excellence, with showing respect, with your sense of purpose, your direction, where you're going, what you want to do, what you want to achieve, your ability to say, I'm sorry. Do all these things, to be vulnerable. By the way, in our industry, you'll find, to be vulnerable and say, I don't know, or to be vulnerable, say, I'm sorry, or to be vulnerable and to cry. See a man cry, like, really? Well, yeah, really. I cry. I tell you something sad, I cry. I'm very emotional about all kinds of things. With all that, when all said, let me finish with this. In a world where you can be anything, my friend, be kind. Thank you.